I caught my wife cheating with her work husband. So I took down her office and made them all pay. She thought she was being discreet, but little did she know I was privy to every detail through a colleague of hers who was horrified by the scenario. While she plotted, I quietly strategized. Fortunately, I had plenty of time to cool my temper and prepare for the next showdown. The stage had been prepared, and everything would unfurl tonight after supper. So, is tonight the night? Deborah inquired. Yes, I'm finally going through with it. I'll wait until after dinner, bring him a beer, and then tell him the news. News I've firmed up. Just remember to stand your ground. He won't take it well, but you must remain firm, Deborah reminded me. I understand, exactly like we discussed. He doesn't have a choice. This is what works best for me, and if he genuinely cares, he'll understand. I comforted her. Exactly. Prepare yourself for the yelling and opposition. He'll struggle, but he'll eventually give in. Maintain a controlled, assertive demeanor, allow him to vent, and he'll realize you mean business, Deborah advised. Right, and as far as he knows, it's only temporary. He'll reap the benefits once he's adjusted, and then everything will fall into place. Are you certain about this? John can be stubborn, I stated, voicing my concerns. Janet, John adores you. Yes, he'll be furious, but deep down he'll do anything to keep you happy, including accepting this, Deborah reassured me. Okay, I'll trust your judgment, I relented. Believe me, it took me several unsuccessful marriages to figure this out, but my present husband is entirely compliant. Give it time, and John will also fall in line. You'll have both the security of your marriage and the freedom to explore, Deborah revealed boldly. After finishing the day, I returned home to make John's favorite dinner. When he arrived, he greeted me with his usual "I love you" and a cheek kiss. Despite my efforts to appear composed, nerves still lingered. This represented a dramatic departure in our marriage. Nonetheless, I maintained the confidence that all would be worthwhile. Deborah had been sharing her experiences with a female-led marriage for quite some time, and she had noticed how satisfied her husband appeared in their dynamic. It convinced me that John would be happy with it as well. Dinner discussion flowed easily as we shared anecdotes from our day and discussed current events. It felt like any other evening supper to us. After dinner, I insisted that John rest with a beer while I took care of the cleanup. He hesitated, ready to help, but I assured him that I had everything under control. With leftovers placed in dishes and the dishwasher running, the moment had arrived. Pouring myself a glass of wine, I mentally braced myself for the upcoming conversation and entered the living room, ready to face the matter head-on. John, darling, we need to talk, I began, preparing myself for what was to come. Of course, sweetie. What's on your mind? He replied, his tone gentle. Okay, John, I understand this may be difficult to hear, but I feel compelled to do it. Please understand that this is merely temporary, I explained, hoping he grasped the gravity of the issue. Whatever it is, if it's significant to you, I'm on board. Your happiness means the world to me, he replied with startling calm. Thank you for being so understanding. So, we've been discussing starting a family, and I'm almost ready for it, but first, I'd like to address a few issues, I proceeded cautiously. That's great news, sweetie. What are you responsible for? He inquired excitedly. It was now time for action. I took a long breath, bracing for his response. Well, John, I need to explore several things before we settle down permanently. It's only a transitory period. After that, I'll be fully committed to being the best wife and mother possible, I confessed, hoping he wouldn't burst. That seems sensible, my darling, but what exactly do you mean by explore? He inquired, surprising me with his composure. I couldn't believe how well he was handling it. This was not the explosive outburst I had expected. I intend to date other men for a while. Please note, however, that it's entirely physical. You are the one I love. After a few months, I'll return to you and we can concentrate on growing our family, I explained, relieved that he wasn't erupting in rage. Well, Janet, it appears that you've already made your decision without my approval. I'd like to make it plain that I'm not in favor of this. I recognize that you are your own person, and I won't stand in your way if you believe this is what you must do, John replied calmly, surprising me with his collected reaction. Deborah's observations were proving accurate. Maybe John was more welcoming than I expected. So, Janet, how do you see it working? Will one of us be moving out, or are you expecting me to leave? Are you planning on bringing your dates here, or will you go to their homes or hotels? John's tone remained conversational. Well, I figured we'd still live here. After all, we're still married, and as I've stated, our intimate life won't alter. I may pay them visits from time to time, but I'll also bring them here. On those nights, you'd sleep in the spare bedroom. I don't see the need for a hotel when we have room here, I explained, attempting to remain calm while navigating the logistics. Okay, I'd like to underline that I disagree with this. However, I must urge that I won't be intimate with you while this is going on. It's a question of my personal health. Since I won't know who these individuals are or what their histories are, I'm not going to risk exposing myself to any potential STDs they could have. Furthermore, whenever you complete this phase and decide to return to me, I'll need to wait until you've been checked and cleared of any hazards. You go enjoy yourself, and don't worry about me, John stated, clearly establishing his boundaries. I can't say I'm not disappointed. I adore and am committed to you. Intimacy is really important to me, but I understand your anxiety. That's something I'll have to live with, I responded, acknowledging his stance but experiencing a stab of sadness. All right, honey, so when are you going to start these flings? John inquired, returning to pragmatism. Deborah and I agreed to meet a few guys from work at a club tomorrow night. I'm not sure what will happen, but maybe I'll bring one of them back here for the night. We won't be intimate anyway, so maybe you could move into the spare room for the next few months, I proposed, trying to sort out the logistics. Okay, Janet, don't worry. I'll make sure I'm comfortable in the extra room by the time you return tomorrow night, John replied, returning to his newspaper without further ado. I was amazed by John's maturity in handling the situation. Despite his concerns and unwillingness to engage in closeness, he remained astonishingly accommodating. Deborah's prognosis seemed accurate. In just a few months, John would probably be completely on board with my plan, and I knew the no-sex restriction was only temporary. Within a week or two, he'd be back in our bed. Nobody knew about my hidden key to his obedience. The next day, I contacted Deborah with delight. Hello, Deborah. It's Janet. Hey there. So, spill the beans. How did things go with John last night? Deborah inquired enthusiastically. You wouldn't believe it. John astonished me with his maturity. I was expecting pyrotechnics, yet he stayed calm and accepting throughout the chat. I gushed. That's wonderful. I told you he'd come around. Do you think you can persuade him to watch tonight? Deborah asked optimistically. I doubt it. Actually, I'm not going to suggest it yet. He made it obvious that he wouldn't sleep with me while I was involved with someone else, I explained, recognizing John's limit. I doubt it'll last long. Give him a week or two to use his hand. Knowing there's a gorgeous woman next to him will make him crawl back. He might be desperate enough for sloppy seconds just after your lover, Deborah suggested mischievously. That sounds tempting. Because he refused to touch me, I made him move into the spare room. He's packed up right now. He promised to be entirely out of the mistress's bedroom by the time I return home tonight, I said, amused by the circumstance. I adore how you nickname it the mistress's bedroom. I might need to do the same, Deborah chuckled. Absolutely. Well, I'd best get ready. See you at the club, I remarked, about to end the conversation. All right, bye for now, Deborah responded. We hung up, both excited for the evening's excursions. Later that evening, John had made significant progress in packing my items from the bedroom. I questioned the necessity of boxing everything when he could have easily carried armfuls of goods down the corridor. He claimed that it would be more effective, allowing him to pick through his stuff and dump superfluous items directly into the boxes. While I understood the argument, I was focused on getting dressed and didn't pay close attention. He complimented me on my lovely appearance with my thong, garter belt, stockings, and 5-inch heels. He made no comment as I slid into the small red cocktail dress I had bought for our 5th anniversary last year. It had only been worn once before, but it made me feel beautiful. Okay, John, I'm going out. I'll probably be back around 1 in the morning, so there's no need for you to stay up. Besides, I might not be alone, I told him as I grabbed my handbag, prepared to leave. Don't worry, sweetie. I'll have everything moved out by then, he reassured me. But as I closed the last box and left the house, a nagging sense crept up, though I couldn't pinpoint its source. I ignored it, preferring to concentrate on the excitement of the night ahead. I joined Deborah, Kurt, and Louise at the club. Kurt and Louise, both account managers at work, were undoubtedly attractive, and according to Deborah and a few other co-workers, liberally endowed. So, John actually moved all the way into the spare bedroom? Deborah inquired as the first round of drinks arrived. Yeah, he finished boxing everything up right before I left. He assured me that he'd be entirely moved out by the time I returned, I confirmed. Is that what he said? Louise responded with a chuckle. Yes, that's his exact quote. I said, I'll have moved out by then, I said. We all shared a laugh. I was thinking we could get the little guy to move over and do it on the bed next to him, Kurt said, earning more laughs. Maybe, I giggled, after working on him for a week or two. But first, why haven't either of you studs invited me to dance yet? We spent the next couple of hours dancing and drinking. I danced with both guys several times, loving their companionship and the sensation of their hands around my waist during the slower songs. We hugged closely, and their hands frequently made their way to my backside. Deborah and I eventually retreated to the powder room to plot the end of the night. After a few rounds of rock, paper, scissors, I ended up bringing Louis home, while Deborah went with Kurt. The house was dark when I led Louis through the front entrance. John must have already gone to bed. It was fine, we didn't need an audience just yet. Leading Louis down the corridor and into my room, I was pleased to see that John's possessions had been moved away. Perhaps I should give him a small incentive tomorrow, such as a hand job. It was definitely worth considering, but for the time being, my focus was elsewhere. We wasted little time removing our garments, though Louis demanded I keep the garter belt and stockings. My thong had vanished hours earlier, a mischievous souvenir taken by either Kurt or Louis. Not that it mattered, it wasn't a problem because of John's financial assistance. Tonight promised to be blazing hot. After Louis left to care for his family, I slid into my robe and went to the kitchen to make some coffee. I couldn't help but be disappointed that John hadn't already taken care of it. It was past 9 in the morning after all. He'd usually been awake for an hour by this point. I made a mental note to discuss it with him later. It seemed normal to expect him to have coffee and food ready for me after such a late night. So much for the hand job I had planned as a thank you for moving into the spare bedroom. While I was away, I ate a bagel for breakfast before going to the shower to freshen up. The hot shower worked wonders on my tired muscles, and I didn't have any pressing obligations for the day. I chose a comfortable and simple outfit consisting of an old pair of shorts and a t-shirt, since I'd just be spending time with John. I grabbed a functioning bra and a pair of ordinary panties. As soon as I finished pulling my hair into a ponytail, my phone began ringing. "Hello, Deborah," I greeted when I saw her name on the caller ID. "Hello there. So, spill the beans. How was Louis last night?" she inquired enthusiastically. "He was great. Everything I'd hoped for, despite a little hitch. He declined my offer. I confessed about John. How did he react in the morning?" Deborah inquired, diverting the discussion. "I'm not sure. I'm truly upset since he appears to be sleeping in." "I was expecting him to have breakfast ready with coffee made by now," I complained. "Make sure to voice your unhappiness and state your expectations clearly. Keep asserting yourself, but remember to reward him for his efforts, as this will motivate him to step up," Deborah advised wisely. "I'm starting to become annoyed that he's still not awake." "Hold on just a moment as I give him a wake-up call," I said with determination. I walked down the hall to the spare bedroom and hammered on the door. When I called out John's name, I received no response. Trying again, I received silence once more. Finally, I turned the doorknob and flung it open. "Damn," I said, shocked. "What's happening?" Deborah's voice boomed over the phone. "John's not here. His clothes are missing from the closet," I responded, panic growing. "Hold on," I said as I ran through the house. "His truck is also gone, as are all of his tools." The nagging sense in the back of my mind continued to strengthen. "No," I gasped. What's happening?" Deborah pressed impatiently. "John moved out. Everything makes sense now. I misread his meaning. He didn't state he was relocating his belongings to the spare room. He stated he was leaving my room. Then he mentioned being moved out before I returned. I assumed he meant out of my room, but he meant out of the whole house. I need to call him and see where he went," I exclaimed in realization. No, that's not the way to approach this. Contacting him now demonstrates weakness. You have to stay strong. Let him come to you," Deborah advised sternly. "Trust me, he's just having a tantrum. In a few days, he'll crawl back. This is actually a positive thing. Now you have the upper hand in punishing him and making him beg to return. It'll accelerate the process. I wouldn't be surprised if you let Louis or Kurt knock you up and force John to raise the child." "Are you certain about this?" I asked, still feeling a little uncertain. "Absolutely. Just look at what my husband does for me," Deborah said confidently. "Well, I must confess that you've been correct thus far," I relented. "Of course I did. Kurt would like to meet you in the storage room at work for an hour on Monday," Deborah added casually. "Can we actually get away with that?" I inquired, feeling a little uneasy. "Of course. Half the girls do it. I handle all scheduling. I'll email you the details. Just sell it as a gathering somewhere else. Don't worry, the boss never goes in there, and everyone who needs something from there knows to contact me first," Deborah reassured me. We talked a little longer before finishing the conversation. Despite my concerns about John leaving, I couldn't ignore my feelings for him and my desire to spend my life with him. But Deborah had portrayed such an appealing vision of the female-led marriage, with its freedom to pursue other men while maintaining John as a faithful, subservient spouse. Maybe in a few years I might convince John to quit seeing other guys if I was ready to give them up. He wouldn't need to know that it was on my conditions, and I might use pegging as a condition for allowing him to return. I'd have to think about that one. But first, I needed to recover from last night, gearing up for what would definitely be a long, hard day at work tomorrow. I laughed at the unintentional innuendo, made a basic meal, had a glass of wine, and went to bed. By Friday morning, I hadn't heard from John in a week, which made me increasingly concerned. Deborah, on the other hand, maintained her optimism, assuring me that his silence was not wholly unexpected. She expected him to contact me shortly. Furthermore, she pointed out that the longer he stayed away, the more leverage I had for his eventual return. Throughout the week, I had met with Kurt, Louis, and a few other gorgeous men in the storage room as planned. Today's program even featured a double teaming with Kurt and Louis in the afternoon. It was mid-morning on Friday, and Kurt, Louis, Deborah, and I were sitting around the coffee maker, chatting. Suddenly, a nicely dressed woman with a beautiful southern drawl approached us, confirming our identities: Janet Thompson, Deborah Allen, Louis White, and Kurt Anderson. She handed each of us an envelope and quickly took a photo with a small digital camera. "You've all been served," she announced before turning and walking into our boss's office. "What's this about?" I yelled out at her receding figure. "Honey, I'm only hired to deliver them, not read them," she said over her shoulder as she entered our boss's office without knocking. She appeared less than a minute later. "Y'all have a wonderful day now," she chirped as she departed the building. Filled with foreboding, we all opened our envelopes at the same time, exposing requests for dissolution of marriage. Panic set in as I read the reason listed: infidelity. Frozen in shock, I looked up to see that Louis and Kurt's emotions mirrored mine. "Damn," they both murmured as their cell phones began to ring. The situation quickly worsened as Louis and Kurt received calls from their wives, who had been given evidence of their infidelity. Moments later, their belongings were unceremoniously pushed out the front door, leaving them in search of alternative housing. The anticipated delivery of divorce papers loomed over them. "What the hell?" erupted from the interior of our boss's office, forcing him to walk out and face us with rage in his voice. He shouted our names for everyone to hear: Thompson, Allen, White, Anderson, get your asses in gear. My stomach sank as we obediently filed past him into his office. The door slammed shut behind us. Bad didn't even begin to cover it. "Could any of you idiots explain this to me?" our supervisor demanded, holding out a manila package in front of us. None of us dared to speak up. "Fine, I'll enlighten you morons. It appears that the corporation is being sued for failing to follow the moral code contained in our employee handbook. Any guesses on why?" Once again, silence greeted his inquiry. "Let me clarify. We're being sued because Mrs. Thompson can't keep her legs together, Mr. Anderson and Mr. White can't seem to control their impulses, and Mrs. Allen has turned our warehouse into a brothel." Now, can anyone guarantee me that these statements are false? Can any of you confirm that, at the very least, these occurrences didn't happen on corporate time or property? Anyone? No? Unbelievable. What in the heck were you idiots thinking? And the cherry on top? I can't fire you until this problem is resolved, thanks to that awful court order. Now get out of my office until I decide what to do with you. With heads lowered, we shuffled out of his office and back to our own desks. It was difficult to concentrate after that shock. At least I had a job. I decided to analyze the divorce petition to determine the degree of the damage. It was worse than I had imagined. He provided evidence in the form of photographs, films, audio recordings, and notarized letters. An hour later, the manager sent a company-wide email to every employee. Management has become aware of numerous incidents in which workers planned, scheduled, and participated in activities that directly violated the moral code of conduct established in the employee handbook. What's more troubling is that these activities occurred during business hours and on company property. Given the possibility that this problem is more pervasive than previously reported, we are obligated to take urgent and drastic action. Unfortunately, identifying those responsible has proven difficult. As a result, the procedure outlined below will be implemented. 1. All employees must completely review the moral code stated in the employee manual over the weekend. Our IT department will create an online course to ensure knowledge and compliance. Each employee must complete the course by next Friday. 2. Throughout the day, security officers will conduct random checks on all secluded locations. This will continue until permanent security cameras are deployed to monitor the areas. 3. Access to the storage area will be restricted starting immediately. The head of security will hold the key, and any supplies needed must be obtained with a security escort. 4. Computer usage will be rigorously monitored to prevent personal use of business assets. Non-work-related activities are prohibited, including booking meetings using personal email accounts, accessing non-work-related websites, and text messaging. 5. Socializing with coworkers must take place in the break room during regular breaks and lunches. Security officials will patrol the building to enforce this policy. As per corporate policy, the identities of people responsible for these actions will not be revealed. We trust that this information will not be required. Thank you for paying attention to these problems. Management. 2 minutes later, my inbox was filled with hate mail from disgruntled coworkers. After work, I met the other 3 at a bar across the street. We were able to secure a small table in the corner, alongside many other coworkers enjoying Friday happy hour. Their scornful looks at us were far from friendly. At the very least, we have jobs for the time being. It was nearly considerate of him, don't you think? But why do you think John inserted that condition in the court order? I wondered aloud. Louis scoffed. Come on, it's clear he wasn't attempting to spare your feelings. He did it to cause greater pain. What do you mean? I inquired, my voice filled with both interest and trepidation. Alimony. It might not matter because he's citing adultery. However, this is only insurance against that possibility, Louis said. If you're employed and earning, a judge is unlikely to order alimony. If you lose your job and struggle to find another, a sympathetic court may offer you financial assistance until you get back on your feet. So, you keep your job until the divorce is finalized. Once that's completed and a settlement with our firm is made, we may all find ourselves out of employment without alimony. This wasn't intended to aid you. It was all about shielding his own back. I'll just quit on Monday then, I declared, striving to exert control over the situation. Good grief, are you actually a natural blonde? Kurt noted. What do you mean? I asked, feeling a little defensive. Resigning is like raising a red flag to the judge, Louis remarked coldly. If you quit your job after receiving divorce papers, it'll appear that you're attempting to manipulate the situation to obtain alimony. Trust me, the judge won't accept any other reason. You'll be viewed as someone attempting to game the system. Your best hope is to hold on to that job for dear life and save every penny you can. It's going to become worse for Louis and me, Kurt chimed in. Given our children's involvement, our wives are likely to receive alimony and child support awards. Consider the chaos that ensues when we unexpectedly lose our employment and are unable to find anything comparable in terms of pay. Alimony and child support payments are made depending on our current incomes at the time of enforcement, I muttered, letting the weight of the situation sink in. This whole female-led marriage thing didn't sound so good anymore. I decided I needed to have a serious conversation with John and figure things out. As much as I wanted to support my friends, losing my spouse was not an option. What was I even thinking? Forget my buddies. If putting them under the bus could preserve my marriage, then let the tossing commence. I quickly grabbed my phone and prepared to make the call. We apologize, but the number you phoned does not accept calls from this number. Damn. Give me your phone, Deborah. Why? Because John has blocked my number. I need to talk to him and resolve this storm. She handed me her phone as my 3 companions stared at me suspiciously. We apologize, but the number you phoned does not accept calls from this number. Damn. He blocked your number too. Try Kurt or Louis. Not a really good idea. I'm attempting to repair things here. What do you think he'll do if he discovers that the first call I make to him is from the phone of one of my lovers? I said. Yes, I understand he already thinks I'm foolish at this point. I can't even deny it, given what transpired at the office today. I can only say that I received a tremendous wake-up call. I was in full panic mode. How do you locate a partner who's purposefully avoiding you on a Friday evening? Staking out his workplace was pointless because it was closed, and he didn't work weekends. With our cell phones and most likely our home and work phones blocked, direct conversation was out of the question. Face-to-face seemed like the only way I could find him and confront him head-on. Forget my pride. Forget about the marriages of the other women. Right now, all I wanted to do was reconcile with my husband. I scanned through my contacts, hoping that one of his buddies might have a clue. Unfortunately, none of our mutual friends appeared to know anything. Well, that's not fully correct. Those who still spoke to me had no knowledge, but those who now detested me knew everything. They weren't about to help me, though. Instead, they scoffed at my demands for help, refusing to even relay a message. It was humiliating. As I hung up the phone after my futile attempt to contact John, I sank lower into my seat, nursing my 4th drink. Just then, Louis spoke up with what he likely thought was a stroke of genius. Well, he began. Since our lives have already been wasted, why don't we go to Janet's and spend the night as a foursome? I couldn't believe what I heard. Did he truly believe that was a good idea? Perhaps to him, but after receiving this reality check, I couldn't entertain the thought. Despite feeling as if everything was falling apart, I clung to the sliver of hope that John and I could save our relationship. That hope would vanish in an instant if I agreed to Louis' suggestion. Politely declining, I suggested that Deborah take them home with her. I had a husband to try to reclaim, and I wasn't about to blow that chance. Over the weekend, I tried every possible method to find John, from searching motel parking lots for his truck to driving by his friends' houses at various times. I investigated every possible avenue, I even tried to tail his best friend, hoping he would lead me to John, but despite my efforts, I came up empty-handed. I stationed myself across the street from his workplace on Monday morning, waiting for him to arrive. However, as the morning progressed, John never showed up. Disheartened, I lingered for another hour, but there was still no sign of him. By then, I was already late for my own job, but I was beyond caring. The impending settlement meant my employment status was precarious anyway. Bracing myself, I entered the office and approached the receptionist, hoping for some information on John's whereabouts. Unfortunately, I learned he was on leave for the next 2 weeks. Ignoring the boss's glare, I trudged into the office, already 2 hours late. At this point, I had exhausted all conventional means of reaching John. Phones were either blocked or risky to use, his friends were uncooperative, and I couldn't even get a message to him at his workplace. Showing up unannounced at his doorstep wasn't feasible, and I had no interest in postal correspondence. As I settled into my desk, a glimmer of hope emerged: email. John was diligent about checking his emails. With nothing to lose, I decided to give it a shot, praying that he hadn't blocked my emails. It was worth a try. John, I won't attempt to fabricate excuses, as it would only waste our time. I must admit I seem to have caught a sudden case of foolishness. It's not fair to blame Deborah. I made my own misguided decision, yet the allure of her talk about a female-led marriage seemed irresistible at the time. Deep down, I knew better than to think you'd entertain such an idea. It took a metaphorical blow to the head for me to snap out of it. I'm awake now, profoundly embarrassed, and genuinely sorry for my actions. I understand if you can't forgive me just yet, John. Despite my recent behavior, my love for you remains unwavering. Please don't blame yourself. This was entirely my doing, born out of sheer idiocy and selfishness. John, my love, though I know I don't deserve it, I beg for your forgiveness. I'm pleading for another chance, willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I see now how foolish I was to pursue following her, and I'm eager to embrace a monogamous future with you. Yes, John, I'm committing myself completely to you, ready to carry out your every demand. I comprehend the significance of the word anything. Thank you, John. I put everything on the line for you because it was a condition of my return to you. I've already had STD testing and the results should be available in a few days. Just let me know where to mail them, and I'll make sure you get them right away. John, you are the finest man I've ever known. I trust that you would never purposefully injure me, even if I deserved it. I acknowledge all of this. I'm not asking you to forget or trust me again. All I want is the chance to be yours in whatever manner you like. I want nothing more than to reunite with you, even if that means accepting the end of our marriage. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I understand that the decision is not mine to make. I accept full responsibility for my actions and am willing to face any repercussions you consider appropriate. Regarding Deborah, Kurt, and Louie's lawsuit against my company, Deborah tricked me into joining in this scam, and Louie and Kurt took advantage of the situation. As you're aware, I'll be sacked after the litigation is resolved. We're all accountable. Feel free to handle them however you see fit. I'm even willing to help if you want. From now on, I voluntarily submit to you, your dedicated servant, Janet. Fortunately, John had not blocked my email yet. Even more incredible was that he actually read it. Of course, he didn't entirely believe my words. After all, I had already broken the most important commitment I had ever made, forsaking all others. Given my failure to keep that promise, it was logical that he would question my commitment to any future promises. All I could do was show my sincerity to him through regular behaviors over time. It's been 2 years since I sent that email. Following the settlement of the company litigation, Louie and Kurt became heavily involved in the turbulence of their divorces. All 4 of us were quickly fired from our positions. Louie and Kurt eventually found new employment, despite much reduced salaries. They were forced to move to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in one of the city's most unattractive neighborhoods, where they struggled to make ends meet. They discovered that their social lives had dwindled to almost nothing. Their ex-wives took advantage of the situation to distance their children from them. I've heard that both women are now in happy relationships. Regarding myself, John consented to my proposal of being his submissive. Yes, John wanted to test my commitment to see whether I could keep my vow if I wanted to reunite with him. I had no choice. It was a difficult 6 months, but he ultimately relaxed a bit. Now he only brings other women home every few months. After losing my job, I stopped working completely. John was promoted and now makes enough for us to live comfortably without my salary. I mostly stay at home, caring for our 2-year-old twins and managing the household. Most of the time, I am not dressed, although John recently suggested that I'll need to start wearing clothing at home soon because the kids are growing up, and it would be weird otherwise. However, for the time being, I only dress when we leave the house or have company around. I still answer the door naked for deliveries. Deborah's still married, sure. She was also fired, but no one expected her to face serious consequences. She had great influence over her husband. She'll just find another job.